Senate on Thursday passed for second reading the tax reform bills forwarded to it by President Bola Tinubu in October 2024. The passage followed a debate among the lawmakers. The bill was thereafter referred to the Committee on Finance, which was asked to revert in not more than 6 weeks. Before the debate, the lawmakers had earlier gone into about an hour closed-door session. On their return from the executive session, the Senate leader, Obayemi Bamidele, APC Ekiti Central, led the debate on the bill. The 4 tax bills sent to the National Assembly include the Nigerian Tax Bill 2024, which is expected to provide the fiscal framework for taxation in the country, and the Tax Administration Bill, which will provide a legal framework for all taxes in the country and reduce disputes. Others are the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, which will repeal the Federal Inland Revenue Service Act and establish the Nigeria Revenue Service, and the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill, which will create a tax tribunal and a tax ombudsman. The bills were supported by lawmakers like Senator Sani Musa, APC Niger East, Siriake Dixon, PDP Bayelsa West, and Taher Mongunu, APC Borno North. However, in an opposing voice, Senator Ali Ndume, APC Borno South, asked that the bill be stepped down for further consultation. He said, "Generally, the bill is good, but I have issues with the timing and, most importantly, issues surrounding derivation and VAT." When the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, put the passing of the bills to a voice vote, the majority of the lawmakers shouted, "Aye." Akpabio then hit the gavel in support of the ayes. Let me start with you, Dandy Loveday. What do you make of this tax reform bill passing second reading?
You know, the eyes will always have it.
Mm-hmm. The nays will have their say, but the eyes will have it.
The eyes will have it. But it calls for concern. First, why is the bill coming now, like Ali Ndume questioned?
Okay.
And then how come Tahir, who is also from the northern part, is against, is in support of it and all that? Then there's this story making around northern elders, northern politicians kicking against the bill.
Yep.
And then most persons from the south. In fact, there's this also an education that is going to benefit those at the southern part more than those at the northern part. But there are lots to that bill.
Yes.
The bill is, in fact, ordinarily supposed to even benefit the north much more than, if not for the decay, the economic decay we are facing currently. Most of the states are even facing such decays and all that. So it will affect most states, especially states that do not have companies' headquarters located in their areas.
States.
So,
you mean company headquarters? You know, before now, the way company tax is usually paid is based on the headquarters and not based on consumption.
Okay.
Now, part of what is going to happen with this tax reform bill, if it passes into law, is that now the taxes will no longer be based on headquarters. And that is why when you look at the taxation, the returns on tax, it appears that Rivers State, Abuja, the FCT, and Lagos State, they are the ones with the highest number of IGR from tax. Okay. And this is because most of the headquarters of these companies are domiciled in these 3 states. However, from what the tax reform bill, what is talking about with regards to company tax now is that this tax now will now be based on consumption and not where the company is headquartered. Okay. What it means is that other states are going to start benefiting. So River States, FCT, and Lagos State will now have reduced tax from company income tax. And these other states where these companies are littered, that are also into consumption of whatever products it is that they, on services they render, will start paying tax to that state where they are also operating from. Well. So to some extent, one would say this tax now will not, it will not be streamlined to only 3 states. They will not be the ones taking the chunk of it. However, other states will now start enjoying as long as the company, you know, is there.
You know, if you check the concern raised by Ali Ndume, he's even saying, if you check the northern region, if you check our tax system, the commodities like that of the alcoholic, beer, all of them and all that, have more taxation on them. And then if you check the northern region, these drinks do not even go over to the north.
They don't accept it.
They don't accept it.
So why would they be benefiting from what they don't accept?
So it means they are also going to benefit from it.
And that isn't that why one of the reasons why it's being kicked against? Because in the first instance, if you say you do not want this, your religion or whatever belief you have, which is well respected, you don't want that. So why would you benefit from that which you call an abomination?
So, and they're also looking at it as a threat. They are facing insecurity issue. And then you're coming up with the reform system that invariably will make the state look as if they are not even generating more fund, apart from FAC. Apart from the money that is given to them from FAC, and then any other way which the government may even get their own money. But it means that the northern region may not be making more money from the country as a whole.
When you say the northern region will not be making more money, you know, let's look at the fact that, Pat, very quickly before I come to you, but let me Dandy, because you just raised a very important aspect of this whole conversation. When you say the northern region will not be making as much money as other regions in the country. Let's look at the fact that, let's consider the fact that Nigeria is running a mono economy. And that economy is largely, in fact, the economy of Nigeria is relying on oil, production of oil. From what region exactly? From the south. Now, when we look at it now, the north has gold in humongous quantities as well. Let's when we do a comparative analysis of countries like Saudi Arabia, you know, their economy is dependent on gold and also oil. But gold, they mine gold and they trade in gold, and their economy is dependent heavily on gold. Even UAE, I can go on to most Arabian countries trade in gold. Now, gold is heavily domiciled in the north, but it is privatized. It is privatized by individuals mining gold in the north. Oil, however, is in the south, but it is Nigerian oil. So when you say that they will not be on the receiving end, do we even look at the solid minerals in the north? You know that probably this is where we begin to ask questions about these ministries handling minerals. You understand, solid minerals and all that. The north enjoys over 13 different solid minerals. And Nigeria is running on mono economy. So one would say probably, isn't this a call for the northern leaders and the northern elites at this point to look inwards and probably invest heavily in the north and also attract foreign investors with regards to the solid minerals they have and generate income? The north can actually survive, make more money or have more money than other regions, going by what they have. Don't you agree?
I agree with that, but it also has its consequences. That's why Alain Dume have pointed out. He said it's a good reform, but the timing is the issue. The timing is the issue. So when are they going to start rising? You know, Nigeria, even the states, the states in the Niger Delta region that even produces the oil. How well can we talk about the states?
Well, we'll still come to the 13% derivation fund. Just hold on to that. Remind me. We'll come to that. But before we get to that, let me ask, let me get from Pat Obiene. Pat Obiene, what do you make of this tax reform bill passing the second reading? Do you think it is being hastily done? What's the rush?
I guess that you just get out of my mouth. Hastily, yes. Beyond that, you're dealing with, first on the face value, good. All over the world, developing economies, tax system is central to their economic growth and their socio-political well-being. Hence, even down here, we easily say anytime there is infringements, maybe by law enforcement agencies or unruly public officers, we are quick to say, is it not with my taxpayers' money? You remember, we are quick to make that reference. That's to show you how critical it is that everything surrounding the economy and governance is actually traced to the kind of tax system. Now, mind you, Nigeria operates a decentralized tax system, wherein the levels of government are independent to appropriate a specific tax. Hasty, why? The present structure allows the federal government to take what you call companies tax, stamp duties, excise duties, custom duties, and even withholding tax. The state governments are limited to just salary, wages, and withholding tax. The local governments are limited to just levies, right? Now, there's no argument in recent past. I think Rivers State was one of such, approached the law courts to explain who has the legal right over VAT, value-added tax.
Yes.
I'm glad we had observed that part of the age-long socioeconomic imbalance, that you have a section, we consume alcohol even in two ways, both for pleasure and a lighter note, even to our detriment. Then somebody else claimed that within the same Nigerian political economy, that his religion prohibits that item. But practically, you take this tax and go develop him, in other words. Now you're planning to make a reform, right? The issue of companies' income tax.
Yes.
We had noticed that part of the economic imbalance, like President Tinubu admitted in his this year June 12 broadcast, this age-long devil philosophy of using one commodity called crude oil from one section of the country to determine a national budget is, for me, in my view, I call it economic injustice of the highest order. Now, if the president can admit that, what it means that in that circumstance, you can do little or no tax reform till you address that fundamental imbalance you had recognized. Because we are not the only federation on the surface of the earth, for crying out loud. If you go by the decentralized structure you're already operating, in fact, it's more like saying that it's not possible to run it from your shadow. So there is the age-long call for restructuring. This is a classical instance of restructuring. We are talking about rules, regulations, and procedure of derivation and revenue. And we are saying that in the present structure where the component states of your federation go cap in hand monthly, cannot, create a sustainable and reasonable and even viable tax system. Because first is a percentage of your income, wages. You talk about, transaction of value of taxable persons. Now, if you take it one after the other of such levels, you're already dealing with, you are told by both national and international agencies that over 70% of your population are below the poverty line. And the first definition says personal income tax. So first of all, the man you want to tax must be somebody who is privileged to a source of income. In the circumstance, the other countries see the tax to swelling their revenue, that is, boost their revenue. Here, you're dealing with a system where the available revenue goes to just consumption. You're not plowing it back to create opportunities so that the citizens are in a position where they will be taxable. You don't want to talk about that. You're continuing borrowing your budget proposal plan, more than 60% of it will go back servicing your previous debt. So there is no opportunity to create purchasing power in the hands of your citizens.
But the current budget will be premised on more borrowing.
More borrowing. So from where, because the rule says it is from personal income tax, companies tax, that is at the federal level. You also have property tax in a more serious arrangement beyond your personal income tax. That is why in Burundi, part of way to check the excesses of a few are amassing so much wealth they don't need. If you go to buy extra lands for yourself, you're taxed. The system there is that they tax from these privileged ones. That tax in turn is used to go and build houses for the less privileged. So you see a fair approach. The tax is making sense. And secondly, is checking this abuse, this avarice of a few want to, illegitimately or primitively acquire for themselves. You acquire 10 cars. So now you're doing this reform. That's why it is hasty. I'm trying to still confirm why you use the expression which is apt. It's hasty. And Alain Dume was very apt. Like in my submission, that's my opening line. you needed to, first of all, when you refer to derivation, is exactly what we mean by how long shall you continue with crude oil to service a 36-state federating unit. You have Adamawa diamond in commercial quantity, Niger State gold and Nasarawa in commercial quantity. Now, I remember former Ekiti governor, then 2016, carried out an unplanned visit to Niger State and found the Botswanas, the Chinese, the Chadians mining gold without remitting to the same Federal Land Revenue Service they are repealing now to now call National Revenue Service. So it is not about the nomenclature. It's about, first of all, understand the prevailing circumstance. If you say companies, you don't limit it again to the federal. That was an obnoxious arrangement. The companies are situated in the component units. So I can't be having, that's part of the call now to say, how will I receive the negative impact of your operations? First of all, I'm in the dark. Look at even the PIA, you settle for 2.5%. Now, I don't know the quantum of what you take from my land. So how am I in a fair position to even work out the 2.5%? Right now, I'm in the dark. I don't even know. I don't have that right. You are not debating that. Now, you need to step it down. You can't continue. We have said that in a federal system, the center has little or more to do. It is the component states and the local governments that have so much to do. They house most of, more of the population, so to speak. So the companies, the revenues, the resources are all situated in the local authorities. Therefore, a fair, sustainable, and workable, and generally acceptable tax system must be such that is derived from the local revenue. So first, you are afraid. You don't want to deal with the political injustice that from under the military government, under Obasanjo, use the military fiat to remove the mineral resources into the exclusive list, which is controlled by the federal government. That is an age-long socioeconomic injustice that needs to be addressed, and that's what Ndume refers to, derivation. So what are you deriving? The man who farms rice, how do you derive his tax and revenue? The man who is mining gold, how has he? You yourself has admitted that many of them who mine this gold don't remit. So it's not an imbalance. Right. You only remit from my crude oil and gas. I don't even get a fair share of it. You take it elsewhere. The man has some revenue, but we are not in a position to also ask him and even ascertain. I said because the tax regulation includes, the administration of tax includes assessment and evaluation. You know, now they wouldn't support the other lap of it, which is property income tax, property tax rather. That is, otherwise they won't be settling for 160 million thousand cost of value of car. You'll be taxed, including the president. You have over 9 fleet of jets, or what do you call it, presidential plane. All you needed was not to take scarce liquid cash to go purchase. Call the manufacturer, let me swap 5. Take 5 for the value of 1. So if that we are sincere enough as lawmakers, even the president must be taxed as a matter of on that plane he went to buy. These ones who have their convoys where they go with over 10, 15 Prado jeeps must be taxed. Those of them who actually need just one house and they choose it because you're a senator, house or rep member, you go to acquire hotels and what have you that you don't need. By the time we place, because even if you go to the tax rules, they higher your income, they higher the tax rate. You know? Right. So these are many more issues that Nigerians needed to be given the opportunity to engage them in a robust debate. Not this hasty Akpabio raising. Of course, we won't be surprised because since his inception, the manner in which he got there, there hasn't been any sense of separation of powers, which is fundamental in promoting dividend of democracy. So it's unfortunate that Nigerians should realize that the only option left to us now is for good men and women to come together, prepare themselves to organize themselves to a point where we can form our own political party and take over from these very, dishonorable men and women who don't have our interests at heart. Because if somebody points out what will make that good intention you have work, and you feel bitter, you feel angered, you don't want to listen to it. From the beginning, it shows that you don't even have a serious good intention if there's any expression like that.
All right, Pat. Now, you raised certain concerns. The first one was generating this tax. You talked about the budget being financed on loan, and whatever income that is coming
And being serviced from one commodity.
Yes, it's still to
The revenue to service the loan is from one commodity called crude oil.
Yes. Now, having said that, you also talked about the personal income tax.
Yes.
And the effects and what can be
Yes.
what is being achieved.
It has two purposes:
Considering
increase revenue, check corruption, financial corruption.
Now, when you look at the personal income tax, what is going on now with the current tax reform, it appears that perhaps the revenue from personal income tax might reduce and not increase. Now, let's look at...
No, Choma, sorry to add, you know that now you're struggling with your 30,000 minimum wage. Though some had moved to 70,000, not so. You have another section of the work population who are in the oil and gas sector. You imagine, for example, you have a welder earning over 500,000 naira, you know, a pipe fitter within that neighborhood, right? And it goes on in their various cadre managers and what have you. You needed to clearly specify the rates. No. Now, if you're unable, now out of the say Lagos, is it Edo who had managed? Okay, Edo, yes, and one other Rivers too have said 70,000. So you know, so you see why you can't just now you're saying you're going to create a joint board, but we are talking about allow the states first, so that I can be in a fair position to decide the rates. The rate matters. So if I'm under 70,000 naira minimum wage, the way you tax me cannot be the same the way you tax a welder who earns 500,000 naira.
Actually, this tax reform bill has taken care of that, and from the personal income tax, it appears the tax reform bill has a humane face to it. Now, before now, for people who earn 300,000 naira annually, not monthly, annually, they are being taxed 7%. And the people that earn 300,000 naira annually, 11%, then from 500,000, 15%, and to 19%, then 1.6 million, from 1.6 million, 21%, and then above 3.2 million, 24%. However, this current tax reform bill is projecting 800,000. Anybody that earns 800,000 naira annually, no revenue. No person doesn't pay tax, no payee. The person doesn't pay any payee. But from 2.2 million, the person pay 15% assets. But before, for people that earn 1.6 million annually, pay 21%. But in this new tax reform bill, 21% now is for people that earn 13 million. So they appear to have been reduced considerably. 2.2 million, 15%, 9 million, 18%, 13 million annually, 21%, 25 million, 23%, and above 50 million annually, 25%. So when you look at it, it appears that when it comes to the personal income tax, the government, there was considerable reduction being made. So what it means that people earning minimum wage will not pay tax, personal income tax. There will be no payee, withdrawn for people paying minimum wage. But now the concern of Alin Dume is around the VAT. And that has been what he has been saying for a while. Because it appears that now this is where the problem is. When it comes to the personal income tax, it appears that revenue will drastically drop because the government is letting a lot of people off the hook. And it's greatly reducing it. But when it comes to VAT now, there will be progressive increments in the VAT. So if this reform bill flies, what it means is that currently, the current VAT now is 7.5%. It means that in 2025, the VAT will now increase to 10%. Now, 12.5%.
That will depend on your production level.
10%. No, hold on. 10% in 2025, 12.5% in 2026, 2027, 2028, and 2029. And then it will be pegged at 15% from 2030. Now, when you talk about VAT, but it goes beyond companies. Individuals pay VAT. when you go to supermarkets to buy things.
Directly and indirectly.
It's just that people have not taken time to know that they pay VAT for every single purchase made from shops.
Yeah.
Because they will just give you your slip. They will not tell you. They will just give you your slip and tell you, oh, ma'am, this is your amount you pay. But when you look at that slip, you will see the VAT. You pay hospital bill. When they give you the slip, you will see the VAT. You pay hotel bill. Even food ordered in the hotel, you see the VAT there.
You know, those are indirect. They are called indirect tax.
So now, what it means, we pay 7.5% VAT on everything we buy.
Even with the biscuits.
We purchase right now.
That's an elementary knowledge.
Now, from 2025, it will now graduate from 7.5% to 10%. Now, why my concern is majorly around Nigerians, the everyday Nigerians, because now, okay, the federal government from the tax reform bill is saying, oh, minimum wage people will not pay. Yes. So on one hand, it's giving from the other hand and taking the greater one from behind, because now, VAT, how many times do people buy things in a day, in a week, in a month? When you calculate that, it's greater than the pay.
I'm glad you just realized that, because I was going to ask you when the statistics of 2 million points, those who and how many in that bracket?
That's another part of it. How many persons are even receiving that level of salary? And then it looks like you want to now create this imbalance between the poor, the rich. You're creating that lacuna again. And then how are you going to take the workers away from that? How many workers can even boldly tell you this is how much I receive? Who knows what's being taken out? Who knows what's not being taken out? How many Nigerian workers, whatsoever you're receiving, how many Nigerian workers are receiving from 2 million up in the civil service? And then when you talk about the indirect tax is there. Almost everybody is involved in it. How do you know if you're not paying tax or not? Oh, I'm a business person. Now, more of this, as if you say you want to deal on sole proprietorships, and you want to know how to tax them, it's easy to calculate. Now, in this case, you're taxing an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur who is supplying the business into the market system is now also placing the tax on such commodity, because the motive of that business is to make profit. Will I come and explain to the consumers that have placed tax, the money you're paying, this is why the cost of the price of such commodity is at this rate? Nobody explains that. So it means that this is also the part the government, I think they were very careful in placing these aspects. And then it's not very clear if you want to. And then this current government is placing itself as if it's a government that is just generating fund. You generating fund from stoppage of subsidy, and that has even led us to the inflation level we are battling now.
You've not gone to CBN rates. The steady increments of interest by CBN. I can go on and on about CBN fiscal policies. Are we talking about the increments in banking system? What they tax
a lot, yes.
Nigerians in banking system, they will surcharge you for card maintenance even when you don't have a card.
And even they will
surcharge you for every single transaction made. They surcharge you for monies being credited.
Yes.
They surcharge for debits, they surcharge for credit, they surcharge for everything. They surcharge for things you don't even
criminally. Yes. They surcharge for even not touching the money for a long time.
And that's
just days ago from my son's account, I was shocked. From a certain amount, XYZ, over a reasonable amount was off. Till now, we're still wondering how. We want to go and fight any day from going to close that. It's criminal. And these are the things that when Njuma is saying further consultation, let Nigerians tell you that, look, this thing, the way you guys are couching this is not making sense. It's like the analysis is saying those in 15 million, 2 million brackets. That now is not reduction there. If you go back now and break it down from their monthly tax rates, the tax rates per month is how you know if there is a reasonable or considerable reduction. And you'll be amazed to see. Now, how many we've identified that fall in that bracket, right? And like you keep saying, we're running a mono economy. It's only those who are either privileged to government or the oil and gas that happens to, like, it doesn't matter how the traders increase prices. They're always willing to absorb it. So, but the greater percentage of the population are below this level. That's why I cited Burundi. It is rather those whom appear to go about with affluence and want to acquire so much that the tax system is targeted at. Why? To create some balance. Nobody, egalitarian, only God knows how long, but a semblance of some social justice. That is, I shouldn't wake up like look at other organized societies, even your pipe-borne water, your tax, your power supply. Look, recently was in the EFCC. The collapse, national grid collapse. Yes, that come out is fake. That there is nothing like a collapse. That all the capital investments. Why we must point out this is that we are trying to look at the timing. What is the justification? You are encouraging consumption without regenerating. You put in money. Power supply is central to boost the economy or economic activities. From where now you can be in a fair position to tax your citizens and transactions. You don't want to give attention to that. Now, somebody consumes what ordinarily is expected to regenerate, and you don't punish the person. You say rather than punish the person and recover whatever is available, let's go and borrow some extra and put back to that place that there was a wastage. Now, in your calculation, the only way you can quickly make up for whatever deficit and the cash crunch you're suffering now is to come and impose and create a tax system where you feel that Nigerians must be made to increase whatever they are paying. We understand these things. That is why we will not accept it. First of all, let us address the basics of derivation. We're a federation. We have said it's a lie that you take from one. The lopsidedness is just so unforgivable. Let us have every state bear your burden. Then define specifically the kind of things you tax. If thank God they're under even Fashola states, before now the governors thought that it was the exclusive preserve of the federal government to go into power production and distribution. No. Now it is clear that the states have a legal right to do so. So what the state need is the economic right. It's like, okay, if states have crude oil, let them have the economic right to go about exploration and production. Then they will be in a fair position to also go into power generation, distribution, and transmission. Then let us take it from there. When that happens, you will find that the states will be in a fair position now to place its citizens in a taxable position. Because before you tax, the man must be taxable. Right? Yeah. Now, the way it is going in Nigeria, for people to even afford, a whole lot of people have stopped their kids from school, can't afford health service, can't afford this. Is it the fundamental, is it in that circumstance you can tax them? So clearly you are busy doing nothing because the whole aim is to regenerate the economy. But we are saying that it's like a tripartite thing, you won't gain a balance. You keep, suffocating just one source from one region. And all that you get, look at the Afrexim Bank, 2.2 billion they borrowed. It will all be serviced from one commodity called crude oil. In fact, I was so surprised that President Tinubu didn't even have any sense of remorse to, on a national broadcast, admit that even in the other countries, the president will find it difficult to even say it out. So now your size of governance, bloated convoys and PAs and all that, and all these people are depending on just that same source. There is no budget. Let's forgive the military days. 25 years of democratic experience is always hinged on $67 oil benchmark. And all this, that's why I see them. They know that, do you know why the hasteness? They know very well that they are supposed to be the first target. That you can't sit down here in the face of scarce resources, you arrogate 160 million naira for your cars. When actually you have cars. You have good furnitures. You're taking XYZ amount for furniture allowance. In UK, this sitting is called clinics. For you to be entitled to what you call that, you must be seen interfacing, interacting, debating, and deliberating with members of your constituency. Not this one that, imagine as serious as the nature of tax reform, you don't even bother retiring back to your constituency, which Alin Dume is calling for. You feel they were not important. So it means that the tax reform is just for yourself. That after all, when the administration comes to impose it, you alone stand to benefit to the detriment of majority of Nigerians. That's why the reason you don't even want to come to hear from us. What the committee said
about that. That's also, that cause for concern. They said they went around geopolitical zones and then got students, got even that was their report. That was their report.
It's unfortunate.
And then it's unfortunate this is happening. Again, let's go back a bit. Governments at every level have their major source of income, which has to do with the tax system and then borrowing. But one concern I must raise here is this. Why is it that this particular government is basically dealing on taxation? Very well, they are taking tax from almost every angle. outside the removal of subsidy, and then we are still going into borrowing. No. And then nothing is changing.
Like, for example, the custom duties now. Take for example, when last did you hear a declaration of what was realized, the level of the amount of tax realized from custom duties? When last? Stamp duties, when last?
Well, with respect to what you have said, recently when these agencies had a meeting with the National Assembly, from all that they said, apparently they had generated revenue. Hence, the president coming out to say, "Oh, there is a 3.46% increment in the GDP and all of that." Now, one of the questions the Senate now asked Minister of Finance Wale Edun and other people, they asked them, if you people have generated so much money within this space of time, how come the presidency or the federal government is asking for loan? How come the presidency is asking for loan approval to the tune of trillions when you people have made over 4 or 5 times the money that the presidency is asking for in a loan? Wale Edun responded and told them that, well, it is your job to approve the loan. You understand?
Yes.
You can see the disregard. You can see the level of disregard.
They asked and they approved. Now, doesn't that also go to show, or is it not an expose of how, if one may say ignorant, the National Assembly tends to be in matters like this? Because, I mean, a loan is presented and you have not asked what is the income so far. You have not asked what is the IGR. You have not asked what is the GDP. You just go ahead and approve loans. And I mean loans that are approved with the speed of light. And you wonder, at what point did the Committee on Finance take their time to do due diligence on these loans? At what point were these loans being debated on the floor of the House? I have not heard so far that the federal government has, or the president has applied for approval from the Senate for a loan, and the Senate asked the president to step down this amount.
What was it? That was the same loan that under live television. The Senate president said, "I can't. This money too much for me to pronounce." Was it? That was the way he was trying to read it out. It was so much too long for him to pronounce. And then this loan, this was even passed. Again, I want to ask, at what ratio? How did you calculate our GDP level? How did we know that the GDP has risen? At what's our production capacity? What new did we do? Did we go into production? Did we go into industrialization? How did we know that our GDP is rising? Is it by accumulating income to now know that our GDP? What are you putting it? Where are you investing it? Where are you channeling the development to?
You know that the last protest was tagged "End Bad Governance." A society where you find good governance is in instances like this. You are faced with, you're presented a plan to borrow a new one. Is your constitutional, social, moral responsibility to interrogate the success, challenges, and chances of the previous monies borrowed, and what has been the positive impact on the national economy or even subnational. There is no such conversation. You see, from the beginning, some of us knew, were not surprised. The manner in which the Akpabio leadership emerged was, it's out of this world. It defies all known democratic principles, and constitutionalism. To the extent that the constitution, even as deficient as it is, provides that it is members of the National Assembly that have a right to produce their principal members. For the first time within the Nigerian political economy, or in the history of Nigerian political, we had the president, who is the leader of a different arm of government, boldly coming out to tell us that he decides who gets what and who gets what. So, to that extent, you don't expect any form of, any element of good governance, where you find the legislative arm that is actually the embodiment of the people, checking the excesses of the executive. Because clearly these are all indications of these guys are bereft of ideas. First of all, they are not even ready for leadership. Otherwise, how could we be this blessed? Look at the irony. He just returned from Brazil, the G20. I went searching. None of those countries will have that kind of intimidating and outrageous debt profile, local and international. Now look at the irony. You just came hours. Go back and check the records. Hours from Brazil. Everyone was hopeful to say, what we are going to hear is that you're coming back with very lofty ideas from member countries to say, we're going to assist you, your public refineries going to work optimally. This is another way. Crude oil has over 6,000 byproducts. We're going to assist you since what qualifies the G20 is developing economies on critical issues. So, but guess what? The good news we got was, I'm preparing to go and borrow. Look at the irony.
$2.2 billion.
You know, equal to 1.7 trillion. Now, and Nigerians didn't bother to even show concern to say, this is unheard of. You just returned from an event that member countries, there are secret factors that have led them to where they are in a very considerable and stable conditions. Why don't you come? What we should hear is that these are some of the ideas they shared with me, the way we can improve. Rather, you said, so personally, I was highly taken aback and I couldn't believe that this is happening to us. You know, so that in itself is sufficient to prove that these guys didn't come prepared for leadership. Neither do they have a clear understanding of the Nigerian socio-economic crises. Otherwise, what is there? Look at the Petros visited President Tinubu at the verge of, I think towards the close of the bad governance protest. And said, look, we realize that it's not about brute force. That we think there is urgent need to organize a constituent assembly and let's have a referendum. He said he's busy with economic reform. When the average student of the Nigerian crisis understands that if you don't address the age-long political imbalance, there is little or nothing you can do about the economic reform of Nigeria. And that's the sacred truth. And that is what anybody who loves this country can tell the president. Anybody who says, encourage the president to go this way he's going, is truly the enemy of this country. Because this will never make sense. Now, if you say you're creating a joint tax board, what you're trying to do is that you say you want to avoid double taxation. That is, a certain investor is at the state level or local government level. He wakes up one morning, opens his business place. He's greeted with an official. He throws and said that he's a federal inland revenue. Or now you say you're changing the name to National Tax Service, Revenue Service. He appears there. The investor pays something. Before the investor could say Jack Robinson, somebody else appears. He says from Obiakpo. He pays something. Before he will begin to arrange his business place, somebody else appears. Says the state internal board revenue, whatever. So you cannot on your own. And this culture of not actually, exhausting debates with the people must be highly condemned. In fact, Nigeria should rise up and begin to, we need to criminalize this thing they take as sitting allowance. In UK, the place is all this country. See, President Tinubu should be asked, look at how he's busy, he has energy and time traveling. These countries didn't vote for him. We actually voted, okay, even if personally I didn't vote, but with due respect. But those who voted, why can't we see him returning back to them? We say, look at Buhari did the same thing, he is doing the same thing. I've observed this trend. You hardly see, in time of national economic crisis like this, you see the president consider it necessary. Even if it's not state by state, but perhaps you just take a zone, you come sit with us. I recall then George Bush Jr. at some point taking America and saying he's going to prosecute Saddam in Iraq. At that point he came back. Over 70% of the other, he stood not like this one here, they make the man to sit down. As a leader, you stand.
All right.
And over 70% of the other students, George Bush stood and was taking questions and provided answers. In fact, some questions will come repeatedly. Say, George Bush, you must tell us why you take our resources to go and prosecute.
I feel like, from what you're saying, I feel like even throwing a point. You're talking about the president coming to sit. Now, those you elected to represent
at the House of Reps,
Senate. In fact, let them not even go for the councillor.
Perhaps they are waiting for him. They are waiting for him to lead by example.
I think at this point, probably looking at the Senate and the House of Reps, probably might be going too far away. Let's come back home to the state houses of assembly.
That's the issue.
Now the question is, why aren't the state houses of assembly speaking out? That should be the question. Why aren't the state houses of assembly speaking out? Because apart from the fact that we have people representing us at the national, we also have these people representing us
Yes.
at the state. So if state houses of assembly add their voices, you know, to certain concerns that are being raised about the tax reform, to a large extent, probably the National Assembly would have to have a rethink.
Choma, I'll tell you something. Sorry to cut in. You see, like the preacher man, some will take principles of the good book to say, for any deliverance that must be permanent, you must trace the time of affliction. The Nigerian crisis actually is afflicted by obnoxious federal laws, right? If we draw that analogy. So the president, too powerful, of course, is debatable that he's the strongest president in the world. The Nigerian president, too much powers.
In the world of Africa.
You know, Africa, maybe some are even extending it to the world, because we've seen even across the world, like I cited US, very humble. Here, they make you feel as if you're a demigod. So probably these lawmakers, there's a culture, party after party, that's the culture they've created. So if they see the president taking the lead to say, this one the president is coming to hear directly from the people, we're in trouble, because if the president finished taking notes of all the people are saying directly to him, then there is little or nothing we as senators, House of Rep members, State Assembly can do. So now that the president is promoting the culture, we know before now it was like this. Now we can see a president who has the energy and time to come visit the people, come close, you know, either stand or sit patiently and take notes from the people, compare notes. So therefore, we as senators, it is now a new culture or a policy for us to retire back to our constituency anytime there is need to create reforms like this or formulate policies and programs. So it's all because it is a federal laws, the obnoxious federal, everything that is wrong with the Nigerian rules, regulation and procedure are all traced to obnoxious federal laws. So it will take a federal leader, in this case the president, to demonstrate a different value system, which includes begin to visit the component, the federating units. Let Akpabio see that you're willing to come and sit with us. Akpabio will not have choice to also encourage his members to start going back to their constituencies.
All right.